But before we do, and something that actually incredibly impacts our whole picking or who we're going to pick, what direction we're going, we have to talk about a guy that's in-house. Washington has decided to decline Chase Young's 5th-year option. Will, we've talked about it. We've heard Rivera kind of say that they were, mulling over that idea, and now it's official. What does this mean for us?
A lot of unanswered questions. That's what that means. It also does mean, I'm going to put on my Commanders hat here, Commanders fan hat here, and say that there's a lot of options as well. Yeah. There's a lot of questions because it's not a good look when your number 2 overall pick, you're deciding to not extend for his 5th year. It's a really bad look there. I think they were talking about like top 5 has only had 2 or 3 of these done. And some of them were just the ultimate busts, and we're among those teams with someone like that. So that's not a good look there. It brings up a lot of questions to see. So what's going to happen this next year with him and Montez, or at the end of the season, what's going to happen at the end of this next season with him and Montez if you can only pick one? But then it opens up a lot of options in the form of, well, okay, so one is going to be okay between the two of you, but whichever one balls out gets to stay, but it also it has some options in the draft coming up here. Do we look to get a replacement?
Yes.
But then ultimately, the other thing I thought about this, and I heard it today on the radio, is just relax for a little bit. Like, they've chosen to not pick it up, but that doesn't mean that it's it. This is it. He's playing for one more season and he's a bust in DC. There's a chance they could release a couple players. You release a Chase Roulier. You release a Andrew Norwell. You release Logan Thomas, Charles Leno, a couple other stuff where you could free up some cash to extend a Cam Curl, to extend a Montez Sweat. You could have Montez Sweat on a contract extension in this offseason still, and that still has the franchise tag available next year for Chase Young. So this isn't goodbye. This isn't you're playing one season and you're gone, because they have a franchise tag that can be used on either one of those players at this point. So.
Right. And look, he's in that category now. But like you said before, it honestly makes you think now, for the whole, draft and mock draft process and going through all this, D-line has been the least of your concerns, honestly. We got Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne locked up. And then obviously Chase and Montez, you want to hope they'll get locked up, but you still feel secure, at least for this year. But now it makes you look, when you're looking long-term, like, well, do I need to get an edge rusher? Do I need to look at somebody, even if it's not for a starting edge rusher? Maybe I need to get a backup that maybe is going to give a little bit more attention, because we don't know if one of these two guys is not going to be there anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I believe, if I heard correctly today, credit goes to Ben Standig. He was saying that wouldn't mean all of our defensive ends are free agents next year. Like, you're talking even about Casey Toohill, and some Efe Obada was a rotational piece that signed back for 1 year. So we would have a whole lot of pieces that need to be replaced in there. I think ultimately this is a motivational tactic that they're doing there. And they do have a little bit of history to say, if you play well, we will reward you. They did it with Jonathan Allen. They just did it with Daron Payne. They took his 5th-year option, and then they franchise tagged him. But they were like, if you play well, we'll talk extension. And that could be happening with Montez Sweat. Sweat had a much better season last year. He fit the scheme, as you talked about earlier, and he let the other players play well. So right now, me and Ab talked last week, and like we're all talking with our heart right now when we're like Chase Young. But ultimately, when you look at you compare the two players the last 3 years, Montez Sweat is the more productive player and fits the scheme. So he would be the player that you would probably look towards. But this isn't goodbye. I don't like it. Let me first off by saying I'm not a fan of it. But I get it. They basically have said they don't want to commit $17 million in 2024 to a guy whose production the last 2 years has not warranted $17 million a year.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And when Chase came in, what, in 2020, correct? And he was Rivera's pick, right?
He
Okay,
was.
yeah. And I'm about to say, because that's one of those things that you also have to factor in, is that, it's no mystery, that Rivera's on the hot seat. He might not get a full 17 games this year, so he's got to do whatever he can to succeed. If that means lighting a fire under somebody, yes, you have to do that. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see, and hopefully Chase gets it. Like, hey, pay attention. It may be, in a lot of these mocks, you get later in the draft, and a lot of their positions might be filled. Those edge rushers, they're still valuable edge rushers later in the draft. So it might not be a bad idea to kind of think for the future, because that's what we have been doing. So it's going to be interesting.
Right.
It still stinks, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, Chase was given a message. If you want to get paid, you're going to have to play well this year, whether it's by Washington or somebody else. Because if you had kept him on the 5th-year option, he could have had a beginning of 2021 like he did, where he really wasn't fitting the scheme, playing within the scheme.
Mm-hmm. And then, and like you said, like let's let him get a full 17 games and see if he does kind of conforms like my test. Because like I said, you hate to put it that what's the priority, but right now the priority is somebody that's going to do what we need him to do. Because as we've seen, that's what's helping our defense right now.